Hello, my name is Emma Carlson. I am a data science and Spanish major at Carroll College, and I will be conducting this CERT presentation today. My presentation, titled Un Gran Viaje, a data visualization of Latin American immigration, aims to create a hybrid presentation of both my areas of study in Spanish and data science. I aim to emphasize what I think are some of the best parts of each area of study, which are the power of storytelling that exists within data visualizations and data science, as well as the importance of culture and historical context that is emphasized in the Spanish language studies. My purpose in this presentation is, like I said, combine these two areas of data science and Spanish, and I'd like to explain a little bit how I plan to do that. My mission as a data scientist is to promote accessibility of data. A lot of times this happens within data visualization, making visualizations that showcase truly the message or the story that you're trying to tell. In addition, my mission as a Spanish language major truly is to learn the language and also honor the history and context that comes with the language and the people that have spoken it for centuries. So it's important, I think, to establish why each of these emphases within this presentation are important. Data gives us very concrete numbers and understandings of certain situations. We can use data analysis to pinpoint exact metrics about any given situation, in this case, immigration. However, we need historical context to truly back up those metrics that we're giving to give a richer understanding to them, that we can truly use it not just as cold hard facts, but marrying the two together to truly have a richer understanding of the reality going on. Before diving into my presentation, I would love to give some context that I think is going to be incredibly useful for the understanding of this presentation for all viewers. During this presentation, I will be talking about many different terms, some of which I've listed below, so I'll kind of give a brief understanding of each. Country of origin is going to refer to the country in which immigrants came from. In this case, we're specifically looking at Latin American immigrants traveling to the United States. So the country of origin is always going to be a Latin American country. The destination country is exactly what it sounds like. In this case, it will always be the United States as the country the immigrant is traveling to. Now, when we talk about the reasons why these immigrants are moving from one country to another, we talk about push and pull factors. Push factors are factors within the origin country that actually push immigrants to go to a different home or destination country. This could be economic instability or natural disasters. There are many different push factors. Pull factors are factors within a destination country that actually pull immigrants in. This could be new opportunity. A lot of times in the United States, we talk about the American dream. It's a huge pull factor, as general as that is. Now, Latin America, as silly as it is to define, there are very many different definitions we can use for Latin America, so it's important to establish one for this project. I reference all countries within Central and South America that are primarily Spanish-speaking or have a history of large populations within that country speaking Spanish historically. This will exclude countries like Brazil or Haiti that are sometimes included in this definition. In addition, when I speak about immigration, I will be referencing legal immigration, that is often LPRs or legal permanent residents, individuals who are immigrating and are able to obtain a green card once they come to the United States. This is simply because this data is the most concrete and trustworthy, while unlawful immigration, while it's a huge presence of immigrants in the United States, is not tracked as neatly, some would say, in the data sense, because it's used, projections are used to make those numbers each year. In addition, we'll be talking about deportations. Deportations involves truly any type of removal by U.S. government agencies or law enforcement of individuals who were immigrants to the United States back to their country of origin or even a different country. It truly just speaks to removals of individuals who immigrated here at one point. Now we can dive in to the presentation. So I think it's important to give some context on Latin America and the state of Latin America before our current modern understanding. Before the 15th century, when conquistadors arrived to Latin America, there were many ancient civilizations that lived there. Civilizations that'll sound very familiar, like the Aztecs and the Incas. However, in the 15th century, conquistadors discovered what they called El Nuevo Mundo, or the New World. The Americas, all the way from South America to North America, became a conquest destination for these conquistadors who were searching for power and wealth for themselves and also for their countries. Central America and South America were a large part of this, quote, discovery by the conquistadors, and they were impacted in a major way by the actions of the conquistadors and what was to follow in years to come. A lot of these ancient civilizations were overthrown by the conquistadors who saw them as an obstacle in the way of their own personal gain. After the initial conquest, it was very common for these Western, especially European countries who had sent the conquistadors in the first place to establish colonies within Latin America. Countries like Portugal and France and Spain had colonies in areas very similar to what we see now as the countries existing within Latin America. And it wasn't until the 19th century that most of these countries had gained independence from these Western powers. Although even after they gained independence, it wasn't necessarily all rosy, because the residual impacts of colonization had actually left many of these countries with a great amount of instability that seeped into the communal, societal, economic, and governmental realm. So we truly see these impacts of colonization and the conquest persisting for many years after the actual events occurred. So we've talked a lot about the Western powers and their role and influence on Latin America, but now it's time to shift to the focus of this presentation, which is the United States. Obviously, the conquest was before the foundation of the United States, so its history of influence actually comes much later. Because there was so much instability after those Latin American countries gained independence, the United States truly saw this as an invitation to interfere and to exert their influence on many Latin American countries. So in order to really cement their ability to influence, in 1823, the United States passed the Monroe Doctrine, which stated that there should be no further colonization of Latin America by European countries. Essentially, the United States was going to police this, and that any interference by European countries would be seen as an act of hostility against the United States. In addition, further cementing this, Theodore Roosevelt passed the Roosevelt Corollary, which stated that not only was the United States going to police no further colonization in Latin America, but it was also going to interfere or influence Latin America in any way it saw fit if the Latin American countries were not conducting themselves in a way that the United States saw appropriate. So we truly see this path paved for the United States to exert a large amount of influence on these Latin American countries, and we'll explore some of those interventions in our data visualizations. Now that we have this historical context, we can jump into a snapshot of several different data visualizations that I have created, and we will pair those data visualizations with historical context that'll give richer meaning to what we look at, the realities that we see in these visualizations. So first, the first metric that we're going to look at is immigration population. This is simply the number of immigrants that are coming to the United States from each country each year. So as we see, on our right side, we have racing bar charts. This shows immigrant population, and we can see which country had the most immigrants per year, excluding Mexico, simply for the fact of not throwing off the scale of the other countries. And then on the left, we have animated line charts that allow us to see the certain group behaviors that we might observe within this immigration data, as well as patterns for specific countries. In this case, I'd like to draw your attention to the drastic upward spike that we see from the years 2005 and 2007. Now that we're able to observe this trend, we want to know the historical context that goes along with it. We know specifically by research that there was a pull factor occurring in the United States during this year that actually caused this group behavior in terms of immigration. In the early 2000s, there was legislation passed that would essentially make it much easier for individuals in the United States to own a home. Certain barriers were removed that would allow individuals to put $0 down on a home or would make it easier for them to get certain loans. Now, for many Latin American individuals, we can conjecture that these individuals might have come over to seek these new opportunities to chase what we often consider as the American dream. However, obviously in 2008, the United States entered a drastic recession, and oftentimes these Latin American individuals that had actually immigrated to the United States for this better opportunity was hit the hardest by the regression, and they suffered as one of the hardest hit minority populations based solely on unemployment rates. So it explains why we see such a sharp spike that drops off so drastically almost immediately afterward. In this next graphic, we're going to be working with the same format, but we are going to be changing our metric to immigrants per capita from the origin country. Essentially, we are looking to figure out what percentage of the origin country's population is emigrating from that country each year. In this case, we have a country that stands out from the rest, which is Guyana. Now, Guyana has seen incredible rates of immigration, with 50% of its overall population having emigrated to a different country. The push factors that are occurring within Guyana truly are cyclical in nature. So we see individuals emigrating from Guyana, and then that emigration actually causing more individuals to leave the country. Many of the individuals that are emigrating from Guyana have higher education levels, individuals like healthcare workers, social workers, and educators. When these people immigrate to another country, Guyana loses the ability to have serving social structures like healthcare and good schools for individuals that actually pushes more people to leave the country. So we see a very cyclical nature occurring in Guyana. In addition, we see an incredibly large spike occurring in 2005, which is a push factor very common in Latin American countries, which is a natural disaster. In Guyana in 2005, they experienced disastrous flooding, which was 7 times the average of what they see in a given year over the course of about 2 months. Individuals were forced to flee in order to have their basic needs met. So this is why we see such a large spike from Guyana in this year in particular. For this final visualization, we're going to be pulling in an additional population, which will be the deportation population in the United States each year, which we see in red on this visualization below. In terms of historical context, I would like to point you all to the spike in deportations that we see occurring around the year 1950. Historically, we would attribute this spike to what we called the Bracero program, which was a program that started during World War II, when many U.S. citizens were obviously overseas fighting. Companies in the United States needed individuals to fill these industry jobs. So certain companies went to Latin American countries like Mexico to recruit workers to fill these positions. Once these soldiers returned home after World War II, sentiments grew sour towards these workers who had come and filled these jobs. They weren't necessarily promised citizenship, they were simply promised a job. This is where we see the rhetoric develop of individuals from Latin America stealing American jobs, because from the perspective of US soldiers, that's exactly what it looked like to them, even though these people were being recruited by the companies. So in this way, we see deportation spike as a result of many of these individuals returning from World War II and thus being able to fill positions in the factories again that were then filled by Latin American immigrants. Overall, the work I've done on my thesis has been incredibly enlightening, and I would like to thank all the individuals that have helped me along the way in providing guidance and reading my paper. That would be Dr. Hallows, Dr. Sullivan, and Dr. Fatstein. Finally, I would like to present my works cited page with all of the references that helped me along the way. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.